Martin, thanks for coming on, man.
No, thanks for having me.
This is great. You are the first teacher that I've had on the show.
Nice.
I'm afraid to say you're not the first Scouser.
Well, I thought as we're in Liverpool.
As we're in Liverpool, I think you're the third. Pete Price doesn't count, although I think he might be an honorary Scouser at this point.
I just always presumed he was, but I've never really looked into.
I think
history.
I think he's one of them from the Wirral.
Oh, is he?
I think he's from the Wirral. Ignore the noise of the steps upstairs. It doesn't get picked up on the mics. Only we can hear it. So if we go a bit weird, the boys and girls at home just think something odd has happened because they can't. They have no context. So teaching. Talk to me about teaching, man. Because I was thinking. I was doing a little bit of sort of research into you and thinking about our conversation stuff, and it took me back to when I was at school. I absolutely loved school, and I loved my teachers. I had such a great respect for them. I wasn't the best kid. I wasn't the naughtiest kid. I was, I got up to no good. But I had such respect for the job that they did. It was it was like an inner city school in Stafford. And it was, you'd probably call it rough. But it had that kind of soul and that kind of heart to it. Do you know what I mean? It was there was a sort of ethos. There was sort of a shared ethos around the school. It was never going to win like an Ofsted award or anything like that. But it was good kids. So how did you get into teaching?
So I did it basically straight from school. It was kind of something I'd always wanted to do, and I did the 4-year primary school teaching degree at Hope. So like quite a lot of people, if they go into teaching, they might do a degree before and then they'll do a PGCE. More for secondary, but can be quite common in primary as well. But I went straight into like the 4-year one, and I loved like every second of it. And then I went on to teach for like a decade.
Wow.
But what's funny is my first year in teaching was like the worst experience like ever. And like, it's quite funny. Like, obviously this podcast is all about like mental health and focus on mind, stuff like that. I would say that's the only real time in my life where my mental health was like through the floor. But looking back now, I always think everything happens for a reason. And I wouldn't be doing what I was doing today if it wasn't for that, because I think I put on like about 3 stone from it, like everything. But then that got me into the gym. And it was probably the first time ever for me where I'd realized how much other people can affect all your mental health. But then after that, I did 10 years as a teacher and loved every second.
It was the first year that was really bad. Yeah. But you stayed for another 9 years after that.
Yeah. Well, I stayed in teaching.
Right. Okay.
I lasted. I always say it was a bad year. It was a bad 3 weeks. And the 3 weeks was so bad that I handed my notice in. And then it took me about a year to like get over the PTSD of it, because it was wild. The head was just like almost like I have more stories about his nightmare head shift in 3 weeks than I probably have all the stories put together of my entire probably teaching career and everything, because it was such a nightmare, and it just dragged me right down, where then I was eating too much, I was being more of a recluse, I was kind of staying in, and then I was doing supply work just to earn money and get it in. And a school that I went into, they were like, "Oh, we really like you, we need a teacher for next year. We haven't put the advert out yet. Are you all right to just do 6 weeks while we put adverts out and do interviews?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I ended up staying there for the next like 9 years.
Oh, so like you kind of moved schools?
Yeah, I moved schools like straight away, because the head of the first school, I should have known, like he went into the school and then the next year they needed a brand new set of teachers because every teacher left after 1 year. And I think out of the 7 that he hired with me, I think like 2 of them lasted till the end of the year. Like,
well, that says everything, doesn't it?
It's mad, and it as I say, it really kind of almost put me into like PTSD for a long time. I remember in the second school I was at, which I stayed at like the rest of my teaching career, like the first like term, it was open plan, and the head and the deputy had walked down every now and again, literally like, you know, to pass letters or to, you know, just normal stuff. And I'd be like having to compose myself
were on
when they were
edge.
near because it was so bad in the last school. And like after a couple of weeks, I was like, oh, I've got to tell you about it. And they were just like, I remember the head going, oh, I know about him. Yeah, you don't have to worry. Like,
Wow. So why did you get into teaching in the first place then? What was your, because it's a vocation.
yeah,
You've got to be from everything. I mean, you from everything I've heard about teaching, you've got to be a special kind of crazy to want to be a teacher.
I think I was just always drawn into it. I always liked helping others. I always say if you go into teaching, you're kind of a people pleaser. Like you want to help people, you want to please people. And it's tough because in the teaching profession, it probably gets taken off advantage a lot. But I think it's just that idea of like, you can change lives. It's probably one of the only jobs where you can impact so much. And every day is different. Yeah. Like every day is different. Lots of jobs you'll go in, you'll do the same things and it's repetitive, it's going through. You're almost in control of your own destiny with a lot of it. You've got to follow a lot of structures, but you can plan what the lessons are. You can plan a lot of the time when you're teaching, especially in primary. And it's just nice being with the kids. It's just nice being in there, seeing light bulb moments. And I was just like that. And I just thought it was just a nice place there. So I love teaching. I'd go back tomorrow, but then
You wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
I get it. I taught for about 18 months at a little drama school. Have you heard of Rare?
No.
So it's got charity status officially. They teach drama, acting, dance, all the fun stuff basically, all the fun silly stuff. It's where Jamie Carragher's daughter, learnt to do her dancing because she's quite a big deal now. So I completely understand what you were saying there about those light bulb moments and those moments where I remember teaching. I used to do acting for TV, so it was all camera work. It was very specific. And some of these kids are from the worst backgrounds, man. I mean, we had one kid from Croxteth who didn't have any curtains in his bedroom, didn't have a bed. He just had a mattress on the floor, and real poverty, and had never been. And you must have seen this as well. Those kids that have never been told by their parents or by anyone that they're good at something. Yeah. They've never been. No one's ever said, "You're that. You could do that." Anyway, this kid, we're teaching this. Me and my mate are teaching this class, and first time we put a camera on him, and he's got sort of like long, sort of floppy. They call it a ket wig, I think. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's got the big hair all over his eyes, and we put the camera on him, and oh my god, some people are just meant to be in front of a camera. You're like, wow. It was a job getting him to and from the school. We had to sometimes pay his bus fare and all that kind of stuff. But to see those light bulb moments where a child suddenly thinks, I'm good at something. Yeah. That's amazing.
Oh, it's the best feeling.
Yeah.
And it's just built up that way, isn't it? Like, there's a lot of stress in teaching. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of admin outside. And that's an absolute killer. Mm. But I don't know a teacher that doesn't love the 9 till 3. It's just all the stuff afterwards, which can be a killer. But that 9 till 3, it's so nice. I never used to feel of it as work. A little bit like now, I don't ever feel like what I'm doing is work.
It's because you love it.
Yeah, but then afterwards in teaching, you would have like a ton of paperwork. That'd feel like work.
Yeah.
But I always think like stuff like that. I think if you can find places and jobs and places where you just always can feel yourself and enjoy it, like time goes by faster, you enjoy it more. It's so good that way.
They call it the flow state.
Yeah.
Don't know. Have you heard that before?
No.
It's called the flow state. It's where you are, and we've all experienced this at times, where you are completing a task or you're doing something, and I get it when I'm acting. I'm not worried. I'm not thinking about anything outside.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the VAT bill that I've got to pay in a
Yeah.
couple of weeks' time. I'm just focused on that, and I'm completely present in the room and enjoying what I'm doing. And time just goes like that, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%.
It's the flow state. Footballers getting it. If
Yeah.
a footballer has a really, really good performance, it's because they're in a flow state
Yeah.
where they've taken on all the information that the management team and the training staff have given them for that particular fixture. They've parked it. They're not thinking, oh, I should be over there at this point. I should be marking him. They're not worried about that. They're just playing their game.
Yeah.
That's the flow state.
Yeah. So funny enough, I was thinking then, you can almost, that flow state, it's almost like replicated, isn't it? When someone watches TV, when they're like going to a football match, going to anything like that. It's probably why that stuff, like now TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, like flicking through, like it's probably not the best flow state to be in, but everyone must be in a flow state in that sense because they're getting away from the world.
Yeah, it's a focus thing, isn't it? It's a focus thing. Going back to teaching then, and the kind of difficulties around it, and you mentioned the sort of paperwork and the admin side of it. There must be like, does it ever feel like you can't have the impact that you want to have because of the parameters of the school and of the education authority?
I think in some schools maybe. The school I was in, where I was there for 9 years, that was never the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it definitely does have a big impact because it's almost like a second job. So you are like doing it so much, like even if you were thinking about like when you act, if you had a second job to do in the night, say, which was from say 6 till 12, and then you're getting up at 6 a.m. to go and do your acting job, you'd find it very hard to get into that flow state just because you're not so much worried about anything, but you're like, I am so tired here. So then you can't be as energetic and you can't have that like real flowy banter, and you can't have like the lesson because you've done so much outside. And quite a lot of the time, it's pointless stuff as well. It's stuff for adults rather than kids. And that's what my biggest gripe is in education. That's what a lot of teachers' biggest gripe is. You are doing stuff because someone who's never been in a classroom has said, well, I was in a classroom as a kid, so I think I know what's right. And then they make this policy. Like a perfect example of it is the Department of Education have done a TV series. I think it's a web series they call it because it's just going online with Channel 4 called Teachers on Tour. And it's being used to promote teaching, to recruit more teachers in. The whole premise of it is 3 teachers go on a tour around Britain and there's no teaching in it. There's no showing the job. It's just three people who are teachers in a minibus driving to different cities and then them going like, right, we've got a special task for you to do today. And that's the kind of ideas that are coming into teaching where really they should be saying, do you know what? Like something like over, like, I think it's something like 30,000 teachers a year leave. And they're trying to replace them all the time rather than going,
what's the problem?
Why are they leaving? And it's that thing of like, most teachers will work, I know, like a 70-hour week. Do you know? And
is that average?
Yeah, the average is between 50 and 70 hours that most teachers will work a week. 95% of head teachers are like absolutely stressed out to their eyeballs. Like statistics show that like they're suffering with mental health. There's all these things going on. It all comes from someone who's not involved in it going, oh, I've got this idea. Like no MP would stand up in the House of Commons and say, I went to doctors the other week and they give me this medicine, but I think they should have given me this medicine. Can we have a policy which says I can pick my medicine? They go, no, the doctor's going to pick your medicine. But yet, like the last time the Tories come in, they said, we think everyone should learn facts and figures, and that's the way it should go. And they introduced in like everyone should learn Roman numerals, and yeah, sure, like it's an interesting thing to look at, but it should not be part of the policy.
Shouldn't be mandatory for
Yeah.
what? I remember Rishi Sunak came out and said that everyone should learn maths until they're 18.
Yeah,
Like, why? Like, we should be teaching critical thinking.
yeah, that's
I
the big
have
thing.
I have a real one of my big. It's not a bugbear, but if I look at the education system, and certainly the education system that I was part of when I was a child, I wish there'd been more about critical thinking.
Yeah.
Identifying that there's a problem, figuring out how to solve it, and learning from it.
Yeah.
That is not part of
No,
of curriculum.
It's not, and I think the biggest trouble with it all is the education system is used as almost a weapon by politicians, and a perfect example of that is, so when I was teaching when I was like doing teacher training, all of my 4 years were built around this thing called the Rose Report, and it was a report that Labour had done, which basically went into saying like, you won't in 10, 20 years time, you won't need to know facts and figures because you can just type it in and find it. It needs to be about critical thinking. And it was all about how the education system was going to transform to critical thinking. Now, just before it was about to be released and changed, Labour lost to the Tories. Tories come in and didn't want to give Labour the credit. So they went, no, we have to go to facts and figures.
Wow.
And they changed completely all the thing and went back that way. And their idea behind it was, well, that's what we did and it didn't do us any harm. We think it should be like this. And Labour have been too soft because now you don't have to know your times tables off by heart. And now you don't need to know this. And now you don't need to know that. We're going to put all this back in. And then it just went silly with it. Again, it's the same. When they do the SATs in year 6, there was always big things about exams are getting easier. It can't be that the kids are getting cleverer. It's that exams are getting easier. So they took the SATs about 10 years ago, maybe just a bit under, and made them the most ridiculous thing on purpose. So, you know how exams go. Start with the easy questions and it slowly gets harder and it builds the kids' confidence and they feel good. They said, no, mix them all up. Hardest questions start, everything everywhere. They introduced something called SPAG tests, which was spelling, punctuation and grammar. They didn't know, there was no kind of proper policy on it. So they got university professors to kind of put it together. The university professors kind of went, well, we don't really know what to do for the primary school kids because, you know, spelling, punctuation and grammar, it's kind of, it is or isn't. So we'll make one for them. They made it way too hard. It was so hard that they scrapped it for secondary school and said, don't do it with the secondary school kids. And they said, well, what should we do with it? Like, should we get rid of it with primary? And they basically went like, no, like if we take it off the primary school kids, they'll say, you made a mistake there. So they just made them do it for like 9-10 years. Just of like this incredibly hard paper, which is all stuff like relative clauses, subordinate clauses, front of the adverbials, you know, all these things which everyone naturally does in their writing, but you probably can't pick it out. But now the kids, it wasn't about how they write it. It was whether they can identify it. And at like 10, 11 years old, and I always remember the funniest one was about 2 years in, there was a thing going viral online because English students in their second year at university were given a cheat sheet by the professor, which was like, these are all the things we're going to be looking at and covering. And all primary school teachers were going, that's what we've got to do with the kids. Like, people are going into such a level of detail at university. They've got it there for the kids at like 10 years old.
That's wild.
And it's all that stuff. Like, education is a political game. And the only real ones suffering with it are the teachers and then the kids, because the kids aren't getting the best teachers. Because realistically, it should just be that teachers are trusted, teachers are given, hey, we know you've just gone and done a degree. We know that you're clever enough to do this, and we trust that you're going to do it. Like, I can't think of many other jobs where someone comes in every couple of years to try and catch you out on whether you're doing a good job or not. Like, I don't know many others who even get checked, but yeah, it's convinced that like, if you don't watch teachers, like every move they're making, then they'll try and get away with it. Even though it's already shown that teachers go above and beyond with it all. It
just sounds like quite a toxic
it is
environment.
It's so toxic.
It's no wonder everybody's stressed. I actually got a statistic here. Let me have a look. 78% of school staff report mental health symptoms due to work.
Yeah.
78%. If that was in any other industry, there'd be outrage. That's insane.
It's mad, like, and it's almost, it's one of those things, it's gone on for so long, it's just accepted. And I think that's why it's always interesting, like when I put a post up on Instagram or anything like that, there's so much engagement with it and there's so much sharing with it. And I think a little part of that is the fact that like teachers are seeing that it's not just them. It's not just them that are feeling like that. And I think that helps them speak, them talk, them just reach out and stuff like that.
Is there any support in place for teachers?
Not really. Like there's like, I'd say there's token stuff like there is in everything, but there's no one solving the problem.
No.
There's no one going, we need to fix this. There's no one going, this is wrong. You'll have schools that'll have mental health weeks. I've known of schools that have mental health weeks in the same weeks when they have exam week. So that's going to be great.
Find them at their most stressed.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, 86% of teachers say that their job affects their mental health.
Yeah. Well, I think it's 50%, about 50% of teachers either have insomnia or suffer with sleep at night. God. Like 1 in 2.
It must be hard to switch off.
It is. It's incredibly hard because you've got a never-ending to-do list. You've got a never-ending to-do list. You know, it's almost like if you were acting, if they were like, right, okay, here's your time when we're going to film, but we're not employing writers, so you're going to have to write it all. We're not employing editors, so you're going to have to edit it all. Like, and then you go, oh, but when am I going to do that? Because we've got this time here. And they're like, oh, you know, when you get time. But then it's the same time, you know that like, if you don't write a script for tomorrow, well, you're not going to have it. So you've got to do that night. And then, you know, it's got to go to air by a certain point. So you've got to edit it. And it's kind of like that in teaching where there's always a job. There's always something to do. And teachers are never really taught about prioritizing and about looking at things and building boundaries because secretly, I think because they don't want them to know how to do it because otherwise the education system would collapse overnight.
But are they also slightly playing off the kind of emotional side of teaching?
100%.
In as much as it must be really hard to know that you like to go into a teaching job, know that you want to make an impact in these children's lives. Yeah. There's an emotional connection there. So they know that you're not going to slack off. They know that you're going to stay up and do the paperwork because you care about the children and at the detriment of your own mental health, your own relationships, your own diet, your own fitness.
It's mad with it. And that's the big one with it. It's the struggle for a lot of teachers of kind of having that cut-off point. And if you do take that cut-off point, you might be seen as like, oh, you don't care as much. And I think it's changing that narrative around it, because I would say to everyone, like, any gadget in the world, if the battery runs flat, is useless. Doesn't matter how good it is. So it doesn't matter how much paperwork you're doing. Doesn't matter about anything else. If you are burnt out while you're in that classroom, well, the kids are losing out more than anything. And it's almost having to put that in. But it's a voice that I don't think has been around for long enough yet. And it's starting to creep in. And I think it comes from a lot of things, but I think teachers are starting to talk a bit more. Teachers are starting to chat, because every teacher looks like they've got it together.
But they have to.
But secretly,
they have to look like that.
Oh, but I mean to other teachers as well. Where they're like, oh, he's
to the
doing
wider world. Yeah. That you put on that outfit, don't you? Yeah. You put on your shirt and tie. You look in the mirror and you go, right, I'm the teacher. Yeah. So that comes with a list of rules. This is how I act. This is how I walk, how I behave, how I interact, how I speak, how I teach, all of that. But as you say, under the surface, you're exhausted, you're stressed, your mental health suffering, you're falling apart. You might not have spent any time with your children if you've got young kids. That's the other thing as well, is that there's a family side of it. We all have responsibilities outside of work.
There's so many, and it always makes me laugh as well. Like, a lot of teachers, their children will quite a lot of time come second, but also come second in like the eyes of the school. So we had a snow day once, and there was only 2 kids. So it happened about 10 o'clock in the morning, like all the snow fell, and the head was just like, listen, we've got to ring up and just be like, you'll have to come and get your kids now, because we don't know what it's going to be like later. There was only 2 kids left in the school, and they were the kids of a teacher at another school who wasn't allowed out to go and get their kids, because they had to stay with the kids of that school who were waiting to get picked up. And it was like, that head is identified like our head did. Oh, like, you have to go.
Yeah.
You can't have the kids. But he wouldn't let her go and pick up her kids, because he was like, no, these kids come first.
I used to love a snow day.
Yeah, I did.
best day ever. I had some wild times. Just to go off on a tangent. I remember one day coming in, as I said, I wasn't a naughty kid, but I went in one day and I thought, I'm gonna tell everyone that it's National Slipper Day tomorrow. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. I convinced an entire school to come in their slippers the next day, saying that it was for charity. No such thing. I was just bored. Would you recommend it if one of your loved ones or one of your friends said, I want to be a teacher? What would you say?
Do you know what I would? I'd always recommend it, but I think it's going into it with the right boundaries. So I wouldn't recommend that anyone just like goes into teaching. I'd recommend that, like, when they go in, they look at it and they do it. I actually do think, after being a teacher, that no one should be a teacher until they've had another job. Because stuff that goes on in teaching doesn't happen in other jobs. And I think it's because of the cultures, but because I would say at least, I reckon 80% of teachers go straight from university to be a teacher. So they've not had that other proper job. They might have had a part-time job, but they've not had that proper job.
It's life experience.
Yeah, and I remember when I kind of come out of teaching, I was like, oh, wow, like, when I stop working, I stop working. I said to one of my mates, and they were like, well, yeah, that's what you do. Like, and I was like, oh, do you all do this? And they were like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Where in teaching, it's just like, there's always something to do. There's always something. So if you had a job before and you go into it, I think if someone says, oh, by the way, you need to do all of this, they go, no. Like, or, okay, when are we going to do that? Oh, do it tonight? No. Like, I'm not working at like 7 o'clock at night tonight just because you want this paperwork done. You should have asked me in advance, or you should give me tomorrow to do it. So you
think younger people coming out of university getting into teaching, that's a dangerous thing.
That's the dangerous thing, just because they don't know what a job's meant to be like.
Mm.
And, you know,
they're eager to please, aren't they?
They're eager to please. You get taught, especially at university for teaching, go above and beyond, be the first one in, be the last one out, say yes to every thing that you're given because it's an opportunity. And then you graduate and you become the teacher. Well, that's what you learned. So that's what you do then. And then as you keep going up, new ones come in, they're looking to you. And it's that which always comes, where it's always everyone going above and beyond, everyone pushing the limits, everyone saying, oh yeah, I'll help with that. Where if you had a job before, you'd be like, this isn't normal, so I'm not going to do that. Do you know? And that's the big one for me. I think if someone wants to go into teaching, I'd say 100% it's one of the best jobs out there, as long as you can put boundaries in and know that no matter how amazing the school you're in is, they're not going to put the boundaries in. Everyone is kind of in their own stress bubble. As we said before, 95% of heads in Britain are like stressed to the max. So they are in this stress bubble and they have to get these jobs done. And they just go, right, James, when I ask James to do something, he says yes, do this. They don't even think about how much workload you've got because they are so stressed. And they just probably expect you to say, actually, I've got a lot. And they'll go, okay, can anyone else do it?
Mm.
Where if you have the right boundaries, you can say, oh, I can't do that. And in 90% of schools, there won't be a problem.
Mm.
And it's that thing, I think, for teaching. It's one of the best professions to go into, I think. But you have to have those boundaries yourself because school aren't going to do it. The politicians aren't going to change it. And in an ideal world, you shouldn't have to put these boundaries in, but you're going to have to.
Yeah.
Do you know? Yeah. Same probably like when you were acting and stuff like that. Like you would have went in as like, wow, you're the new one on the scene, you know, it's your first proper gig. If you didn't have an agent who went, okay, you're pretty established on this show now, like, let's go and get a pay rise.
Yeah.
They'd carry on paying you that minimum wage that they could, wouldn't they? It's the same with the boundaries in school. Mm. If you don't put them in, they're going to just keep giving you and keep giving you and keep giving you. And then you will go, you'll be burnt out, you'll be tired, you'll be exhausted, you'll be fed up, and you'll just be like in almost a living nightmare. But if you can put the boundaries in, it's one of the best jobs you can do.
It sounds like that's happening a lot, or has happened a lot historically.
100%.
The teachers don't put those boundaries in.
No.
You mentioned before that you think things are starting to improve a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah.
Has the Labour government made any impact that you're aware of?
Not from what I've seen.
No.
I think the biggest one for it is just social media.
Really?
Yeah, I think what has happened over the last 10 years, slowly, and you're kind of seeing a lot more now, is before, the only teachers I would really speak to were the teachers in my school and my mates from uni. So top whack, we were only a little school, so like top whack, I'm speaking to 20 people. They're quite close friends or, you know, they work colleagues. I'm not going to be going to a work colleague and going, oh, I'm so overwhelmed here. And they're not going to come to me and say, oh, I'm so overwhelmed.
Because you're all keeping up that pretense.
Yeah, because we're keeping that up. So everyone's just kind of living their own little bubble of like, I'm so stressed, I'm so overworked, but everyone else has got it together here. We're now online. There's a lot more voices and there's a lot more teachers. And someone will say, oh, I'm really burnt out. And then there'll be a load of comments of teachers saying, oh, I feel the same way, and blah, blah. And it's that thing of like, almost that strength in numbers, where it's like, oh, okay. And then someone will say, I don't know how to do it. And then someone else will say, this is how you can put this boundary in place. And it's kind of being shared. Like
that's really nice.
That's what I try and do a lot on my Instagram. Like, do it that way. But there's a post I did like 3 days ago, just like saying like, if you are burnt out, if you are feeling burnt out, these are the reasons why. And it was like 19 different reasons why teachers can feel burnt out. It's got something like I think over 6,000 shares. like 6,000, and it'll only be teachers that have sent it. There is 6,000 teachers who've seen that and sent it to someone else.
That's amazing.
Do you know what I mean? But as well, it shows that there's that level where beforehand, everyone's in their own little bubble. So that's why I think it's changing. I don't think it's changed too much because of the Labour government. It might do over time. It's still early days, but I think the big one is a while ago. They had a chance with Ofsted to change it, and they didn't. I think they've had 2 fumbles with Ofsted. I think the Tories have had a big fumble with it, and then Labour have had a big fumble when they've come in. When it was COVID, there was every learning had to go online. Teachers ended up with a better work-life balance because of it, even though they were still teaching all day, but it was more manageable. And that should have been a point where that government should have went, we can do this a little bit differently and still have the success. They didn't. They doubled down and went, everything's got to go back to how it was. And it just ended up probably more burnout, more stress since then because they've been trying to play catch up when they didn't need to. Yeah. When Labour have come in, they tasked Ofsted because a head teacher actually took her own life. Don't know whether you know about that, but she was so stressed about Ofsted that she, and the impact it had on the inspection, she actually took her own life just because of Ofsted. And there was big outcries of this has got to change because this is ridiculous. Labour come in and went, you know what, you're right, we're going to change it. We're going to take away the one word thing, inadequate, good thingy. We're going to put a colour rating system in instead. So that was the change, colour rating system.
Wow. So just to confirm, exactly the same thing,
but with the colours.
But colours instead of words.
Yeah.
Well done, Keir Starmer.
Yeah, that's it's stuff like that, and it's always just that problem with it. It's never really fixed, and it's because people at the top have never been teachers. If they put a teacher in, or if they put someone in, they would go, well, we don't need to do all of this. But yet they have people in who think the data is the big driver. League tables for schools. One of the biggest jokes I always find is you have to have all your children at average, the average kind of above average. That's how you're seen as a successful school if the work you're doing with your children is above average. But surely if everyone's above average, then the average just moves up and then some people will be below average.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then you're also judged as a teacher on how well your class has done, and how much progress they've made, but not thinking about you might just have a brighter class one year.
I was going to say that there are other things at play, though, aren't there? There's social economic things as well. Yeah. Children from more deprived backgrounds, children who haven't eaten a healthy, a big breakfast in the morning, are less likely to have a good day at school. Children who are from, not necessarily abusive or violent homes, but homes where they don't have that support and that love and that nurturing, those children are going to suffer more. So there are 100%. There are loads of different things in play. It seems really archaic to just have a colour or a word to distinguish the quality of the teaching.
100%.
When there's so many things at play.
And even I think a thing which sums it up is in the school I was in, it was my first year in this school and they had Ofsted. And the reason that they had Ofsted had come in early was because the year sixes who just left, hadn't made the progress that they should have made.
Right.
And because of that, no matter what, you're a failing school. Those children haven't made the progress they've made. You are a failing school. And then it is hell. They will come in every 6 weeks and they will do, they will say, right, we're doing a maths inspection. Right, we're doing an English inspection. Right, we're doing borders inspection to check your displays. But the worst bit about it was our head, and he'd literally been, the head had just retired and the deputy had become the head. So it was his first day. Picked up the phone. He'll still have it. Like, he's got the record for the fastest Ofsted. Like, he walked in on his first day's head and went, hello. And he went, we'll be in tomorrow. And he was like, oh, okay. So he puts the phone down.
I'd have got straight in my car and driven off again. God, this is someone else's problem.
But the best bit about it was, this woman comes in, she strolls in through the door, and she said to him as she come in, just to let you know, no matter, this is before the inspection, just to let you know, no matter what, you'll be requires improvement. And walks through. And he was like, and the big thing was, the reason the year sixes hadn't made so much progress is they just had a bit of a weird year where over the course of, so when they got graded in year 2, and that's when they did it from year 2 SATs to the year 6 SATs, 20 kids had left and 25 kids had come in. So it was basically like a different set of kids. And all the way through, he was going, can I just explain to you, like, these are different kids? And she was like, I don't want any excuses. There's no excuses here. They haven't made the progress. So you're going to be requires improvement. And this was for 2 days. He was like, yeah, but can I just, she was like, don't want to see it, blah, blah. And she went through everything and she was going through kind of like why they were requires improvement. And he said they were in the last meeting and she was explaining everything about why they were requires improvement. And she said, like, you know, if we take this example, if we take this child, for example, John, like, what was his year 2 things? And the head said, he went, oh, well, he got this, so he is on track, but he was at a different school. And she was like, oh, okay, what about such and such? He was like, oh, well, you know, he has made progress, but he was at a different school then, so he's not in that data. And he said she did it with like 10 kids. And then she was like, where are all the kids? And he was like, well, the different kids I've been trying to tell you. And she went, oh, this school can be good then. Like, and it was,
wow,
it was that different. And he was just like, oh, okay. Like, but
that's ridiculous.
It was requires improvement. And there was this big list of like everything that needed to improve, everything that was wrong. And this is why. And then when she found out, she was like, yeah, get rid of that. Like, don't need that. Yeah, the school's fine.
Sorry for putting you through hell for 2 days.
Oh, no, sorry. Just like, yeah, it's good.
Christ.
And it's those little things in teaching which are there. Like, as I say, Ofsted are there to catch teachers out. Do you know? But as you said before, like, anyone who goes into teaching, they're going in like to help kids.
Because you're going because you care.
Yeah, you're not going for the money. You're not going for anything else. You're not going for an easy life. Everyone knows how stressful it is. Everyone knows how tough it is. You're doing it because it's something that you want to do. And the idea that you have to have like these people who come in to try and catch you out is madness. Yes, if you get all the grades from a school and 1 year, like every child in the school completely fails every GCSE, you should go, maybe we should go and have a look what's going on there. But the idea of like, not like just basically saying like every teacher is out to like pull the wool over our eyes and we're going to catch them out. That's the mentality of Ofsted. And that's the mentality of like almost government to school. So it's like, we need you to do this and we need you to do that and we need you to do this. And the only thing that suffers is the teacher's mental health and then the children, because they've got someone there who almost, it sounds harsh to say, but almost can't wait for the kids to go home because then you can do your proper job. You know, like that's the level.
This is the system that we've created.
Yeah.
Wow. That's I'm shocked. I knew it was stressful. I knew there was a lot.
Mad, like
I had no idea. Did this feed into what happened to you in that first year? Was
yeah. Mine was that there was a head who was promoted too quick, who didn't understand anything apart from just data. And that was it. And like you used to have to have all your lessons kind of put up on the wall, and he would come into your lesson just randomly and he'd take the lesson out. So he'd look at your timetable and he'd go like, oh, like they're meant to be on history right now. we're in week 4, and then he'd get your history week 4. He'd look through it. Then he'd check his watch to see like what point, how long the lesson was in. So if it was 20 minutes in, he'd go to where it should be about 20 minutes. And if you weren't at that bit, he'd stop you and be like, can I just ask you why you're still on the carpet with them, but they should be doing the work right now? And you'd be like, oh, well, they didn't quite get it, so we just spend a little bit more time. Oh, okay. After this, can you come and see me in my office? And then he'd go to his office and he'd be like, you sure your teaching is up to scratch? Because you were on the carpet for 20 minutes with them there and they didn't get, like, you said because they didn't understand it. And you'd be like, well, yeah, they didn't understand it. You'd be like, okay, maybe we should have a couple of more lesson inspections to make sure.
So he's bringing your teaching into scrutiny.
Yeah.
Because the children didn't understand it. Wow.
Yeah, stuff like that. And every Friday night you have to have all your planning in. Now, later on, and I know all the rules, he was completely wrong what he was doing. He wasn't allowed to do it. But again, no one told me that he wasn't allowed to do it. So I just presumed what we were doing was right. Every Friday night, you would have to email all your planning for the next week to him. Now, you didn't have to, you weren't allowed to be asked to do that, but I didn't know. So I would send it to him on a Friday night, everyone in the school would. And then by Saturday morning, you would have a list of corrections and he would expect you to fix them and send them to him by Sunday night. So like that was without marking books, without anything else, like paperwork backwards and forwards from him. He, even to the level, the type of man he was, you have in a school, you have a governors, like the school of governors, and you will have a teaching governor and you will have a support staff governor. And he wanted his secretary to be the support staff governor. And all the teaching assistants were like, because they all get to vote for who they want, were like, we can't let her be it because he I don't know why, he detested teaching assistants, like hated them. And they were like, we can't not have a voice in there because he's going to come after us and we'll all be gone within a couple of years because he hates us that much. So they all banded together and were like, right, who's going to step up and do it? And this one woman, she said, I'll do it, but you all have to vote for me because if I do it and I don't get it, it's going to make my life like a dog's life. So you're like, okay. So they all voted and she won by like a landslide. And then the next staff meeting, he said to everyone, I got all the votes in for who we wanted to be the support staff governor, but a couple of people who voted brought the votes for other people. And I don't know whether they've been tampered with or not. So I would like each, in the next 24 hours, I would like each support staff worker to come and knock on my door and tell me face to face who you're voting for. And they were all like, they all had like another little meeting and were like we all have to do it. Because if he was hoping that they'd bottle it and they'd all pick the one he wanted because they were looking at him face to face. But they had like a little meeting together and they were like, if a couple of us bottle it and vote for her, the ones who stand up to him will be the first ones he'll go for. And that was like the mentality of the school. I got put on a written warning in the first week because I was working and the deputy had come past and she went, Martin, have you got your NQT folder? And I said, oh no, I was doing work on it last night, so it's at home. And she said, your NQT folder should be on you at all times in case we want to have a meeting. This is a written warning. And I was like, oh, okay.
It's my first week.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was a rule. You're like, yeah, it was. And it's quite a serious one to break. And it's to not have your folder with you. In the next school I was in when I did my NQT, my mentor was the teacher in the year below, but like she was just around the corner. And I don't think she looked at my folder once. Like she did. I was like, oh, do you ever need to you want me to bring my folder? And she was like, oh, no, trust that you're doing it. Like,
well, yeah, because you're a grown up.
Yeah. She was like, yeah, no, it's fine. The folder, she was like, the folder is literally just for me. You don't have to send it anywhere. It's for me to see that you're doing a good job. And I'll just check your books. I have to do lesson observations on you, and we'll talk about stuff. And I was like, oh, okay.
God.
And that's kind of the level. So
the micromanaging is just off the scale.
The first year was rough. Like the first 3 weeks was seriously where I was like, have I made the right decision here?
And that's your first teaching job?
That was my first teaching job where like I think, what did we have? I was there 6 weeks because I did till the end of the first half term. But after the 3 weeks, funny enough, the 3 weeks after I handed my notice in were probably why I stayed in teaching, because they just left me alone. Just like, like it was like, he's gone. And I was like,
just gave up on you.
Oh, this is great. I was like, oh, this is what I thought teaching was.
Martin's not got his folder. He's not got a folder with him.
Yeah. But you were like, I was like, oh, this is great. But the 3 weeks before, so in those 3 weeks, I had 3 lesson observations. I had 2 book scrutinies. I got like brought in the office and like given it like telling off as well, because we didn't have the books for the first week. He ordered these special books with like the school's name on the front and the incoming time. So we were working on pieces of paper, and I just had folders with them all, and I just put them all in a cupboard. And I was like, well, they're there, and he said, right, we're going to have so we got them on the Friday, and on the Monday he said, right, we're going to have a book scrutiny on Wednesday. And I said, well, I don't think I'll have anything in my books, really. And he was like, why won't you have anything in your books? I was like,
because I didn't have the books.
Yeah, I didn't have the books. And he was like, yeah, but you should trim all the work that you've done and stick it in. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I thought you would have done that over the weekend.
Tell you what, you get paid more than me. Why don't you trim it and stick it in, dickhead?
But that was the level of it, like, and he was in next level. But even to that point, I know he got given like a second school and become like a superhead where he ran 2. So like stuff like Ofsted, they don't look at how many teachers are leaving each year. That should be the red flag. If someone comes into a school and every teacher leaves, and then they hire a brand new set and 5 out the 7 leave, like that should be a...
What should be a red flag?
Yeah, what's going on here?
Does nobody ask? Does nobody ask the teachers? There's nobody that comes in and says, how are you getting on?
No.
Wow.
No, there's nothing like that. It's just kind of put on that the school will do it. That they'll look after them, even though I would say quite a lot of schools, like I've done a lot of supply and stuff like that as well. Quite a lot of schools are good at it, but the heads will be so stressed out. There's just so much workload. But there is those couple of schools like that one where like they've got the wrong person in charge and there's no checking up on it.
That was what I was going to say is because you hear, that's what you've just said then about that head is, that's a horror story. But you hear these stories, don't you, about these head teachers who run schools with an iron fist. Everybody's terrified of them. Nobody looks forward to going to work. Everybody's stressed. Nobody's checking on these head teachers.
No. Well, one of them, I can't think of her name. I try not to pay too much attention to her, but she's the strictest head teacher in Britain. And it just sounds horrible. Yeah. But she's like praised as like, oh, she's the one that gets the job done. But it's stuff like, no child is allowed in her secondary school. No child is allowed to talk in the corridor. Like they've all just got to walk in a line to their next lesson.
That's prison.
Yeah,
that's jail, isn't it? I'm pretty sure
they've got all stuff like that. She like, but she's praised for it. She's put like as like, oh, this is great. Like she should be the one in charge. And you just think you have people who are like, went to school 60 years ago when schools probably were like a horrible place to be.
Yeah, it was a different time.
Yeah, thinking that, well, it was all right for us, so it should be all right for them.
Yeah, but they used to cane children in
Yeah.
schools. Like, there's a
you know what?
reason why we don't do that anymore.
There'd be people calling for it back now.
Yeah, I bet. So what was going on with you then in that time? What were the effects then?
So for me, it put me in my shell a little bit, because I was just like, oh my God, like I've just spent 4 years of my life and now I don't think I'm
very good at this, because everyone keeps telling me I'm shit.
Yeah. So then afterwards, there's a lot of mental stuff then, where I was getting to school ridiculously early for those like 6 weeks. I was the last one to leave. I was working really hard. I was super tired. I was like just binge eating everything.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, binge eating, emotional eating, which a lot of teachers suffer with.
Do they?
Yeah.
So that feeds into the work that you do now then?
Yeah. And that it all come about like in that year. So I was only there 6 weeks, but over that year, I ended up with like severe like binge eating, emotional eating, put on 3 stone. And when I got this job at the new school, even though I was only meant to be there 6 weeks and I ended up there for like 9 years, I remember kind of looking at myself over the summer and thinking, I don't like who I'm looking at. And I've got 6 weeks now, not to fix it, because you're never going to fix it in 6 weeks, but I've got 6 weeks now while I haven't got any stresses, while I haven't got any strains, to go and figure this out. So I got myself a coach. I learned how to do it, and actually was almost annoyed at how easy it was. It was just that it wasn't laid out. You know, how to train, how to eat right, all these things, where I learned it, and then kind of from there, it kind of built then. So like I got a PT qualification because I wanted to learn about it for me, like how to do it. But then I needed to use people to like, oh, I'll train you and you so that I can get this qualification. Found out I was good at it. Kept building it that way. Then it became a little side hustle. And then I decided to make it like a full-time gig. At the beginning, I was doing in person, just not with teachers, with anyone. But then when COVID hit, I kind of pivoted online, and I found a lot of the stuff that I was talking about, I was using my personal experiences. So it lent more to teachers, it gained traction there, and then kind of there now, like helping teachers now. And I love it. I love it because beforehand, I was in the classroom and I was helping 30 kids, where now I look at it like I can have an impact on like almost every classroom by building those like habits, that resilience, that structure in other teachers.
You're making healthier, happier teachers.
That's it.
Which surely is the biggest impact on our young people. One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, with working with teachers specifically, and you've spoken quite in depth there about the hours and the strain and the work you're expected to do in the evenings and weekends. Is one of the difficulties, is it for teachers finding the time to do all this?
Yeah, do you know what? It is and it isn't. So I would say the biggest difficulty isn't finding the time, because we know where that time is. It's in all the extra stuff. It's kind of flipping the switch and going, okay, we know that like it's not going to be perfect straight away, but what do you really need to be like live a healthier life? Well, you need to eat better food and you need to do a bit of exercise. You can probably get away with 2 or 3 30-minute sessions of exercise. So we've got to find an hour. And you're already making your food and stuff like that. We probably need an hour for you to actually line up healthy food that you enjoy. So we only need to find 2 hours. So we try and claw that back from school. And then the eventual goal is then to keep building those habits and routines and structures and push away that schoolwork. And it's foolish to think that like, if you're working like a 60, 70 hour week, that you sign it with me, and now you only do the 40. Like it's never going to happen, but you can make a 70-hour week over the course of a half term, 65. And then you can make that 60. And then at 55 and 50, and keep bringing it down to where you will find, you know what? I've actually stopped doing this stuff. I've actually challenged this stuff. I've started saying no to this stuff. And nothing's happened in school. Like one of my biggest ones, just because when phones kind of first had emails on, everything like that, I had my work email on my phone, and the head would always text because he'd be email because he'd be working at night. I'd be watching TV. I'd look at my phone. I'd see an email. I'd reply back. He'd reply back. And we'd be like doing things all night, and I'd end up with like maybe a list of jobs to do. Nothing wrong with that. He was working and I was working. The trouble come with the boundary. I shouldn't have answered that email till the morning, but I've seen it. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm going to reply to it. One night, I just took my emails off my phone. I went into work the next day. It was about 7:30 I was in, and the head had just come in, and I was doing some photocopying because I always like to do all my work at school. And when he come in, he was like, "Oh, you didn't reply back to my email." And I said, "Oh, when did you send it?" And he was like, "Oh, at 7:00 last night." I said, "Oh, I've just decided that like I took my work emails off my phone. I'm not. I haven't even looked at them yet. I'll probably look at them at like 8:00." And he went, "Oh, okay." Do you know, like, there was no big deal, but it just become an acceptance that, like, I answer those emails. So then I've probably sometimes become his first port of call because, again, he's probably stressed. He wants something off his thing, you know. Oh, we need someone to do the after-school tournament tomorrow. Yeah. If I message Martin, I know I'll get a reply, and he'll probably say, yeah, okay, yeah, that's done. Where it was waiting then till 8 a.m. the next day. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and it's putting those boundaries in. So it's when I work with someone, it's like, let's get your emails off your phone. Do me a favor. Have a look at this like grid, like this school day. Fill it all in. Put in when you're teaching. Put in when you're planning. Put when you're cooking your own food. Put when you're training. Let's see. And it calculates how many hours they work, and it shows it as a graph. And then it's like, okay, next half term, let's try and get that down. Do you know? And it's that
That's
side.
amazing.
It's that little tiny little things which are then build to something which is going to have a lot more impact.
It's fascinating, mate.
Yeah.
It's so important, the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
It really is. Because it's almost, you're almost doing yourself a bit of a disservice calling yourself a PT. Because that conjures up images of like, right, here's your training plan. We're doing back and biceps today. Brilliant. Okay. And I want you to only eat sweet potato with your lunch. But actually you're teaching teachers how to be better teachers.
Yeah, maybe in a way.
No, you are. Because you're teaching them about boundaries, and it's a much broader thing. You're teaching them about how to balance their time, how to look after themselves mentally, and all of these things have a real tangible effect in the classroom. It must do.
Oh, I think they definitely do. When someone's got more energy, when they're feeling happier, when they're feeling more confident in themselves, they're going to be able to portray themselves as their true selves, rather than like putting a mask on every day for work.
Yeah, exactly. Are you getting a lot of teachers coming to you then? Is it?
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, it's always been good, but the last year, my page has just exploded. Like, and I think again, a little bit like when teachers come to me for weight loss or whenever anyone does anything, it's that time and effort put in over a long period of time. You know, I don't think I've missed hardly a day of posting on Instagram for the last 5 years. And I've tried every type of post, every type of content, and seen what works. And it's that thing of like, and what I'm doing now, I know won't work in 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's that thing. But to me, it's the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it, the easier it becomes. And then you can start speaking as your true self more. So then you can be more open about stuff. You can be more honest about stuff. And then, I've like so many teachers reaching out, not even just like that I work with, but even will just reach out for advice in the DMs and stuff like that.
But it's interesting because I bet you get teachers who come to you. You just mentioned it. Then I'm going to pick up on that. You said a teacher might come to you and say, "I want to lose 3 stone." Say, but actually, when you break it down, what they're actually looking for and what they really need from you is not a way to lose 3 stone. It's a way to manage their time and their boundaries better.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately what you're offering. It's not just, because with the greatest of respect, if you wanted to find a workout plan, you can Google it.
Yeah.
It'll be online. If you want to find some healthy eating stuff,
say.
it's all on there. But what you're actually offering is, I can help you get your life and your career back on track.
Yeah.
So that you're a more well-rounded person and you don't end up like the teacher that you mentioned before who took her own life.
Yeah. And that's it. And I actually think, funny enough, we were talking just before we started recording, we were talking about like before and after photos. And I think what you said there, it's like perfect where I think about before and after photos, because I never really push anyone. I make everyone I work with take before photos, but I'm not bothered whether they give them to me. But I tell them all they need one, because at some point you're going to lose all that pain that you're feeling right now, which got you started. You will forget how you used to feel, and then your body will start tricking you, your mind will start tricking you that you've not really changed. Where if you've got that photo, you'll look back and go, God, look how far I've come.
Yeah, it's a useful tool in that way.
But I think what's even more important is the people who because I do share before and after photos. Sometimes online there can be a bit of stigma around them now of like, oh, you shouldn't use them to promote and you shouldn't do this. And the way I look at it is like just kind of how you've explained it there. Someone will come to me wanting to lose 3 stone, but it's actually, they don't want to lose 3 stone. They want to get better boundaries. They want to get better routines. They want to get better habits, better structures, but they don't know that that's what they want. So if I go, hey, if you come to me, I'm going to do better routines and boundaries and habits for you, they're going to go, no. Like, that's not what I was coming for. Where if I go, hey, look, this is what this person's done, they go, oh, well, that's what I want. And then they go, okay, this is how they did it. Oh, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, once you've got them in the room, you can then go, well, actually, I know you want to look like that, but the way you look like that
is by doing this.
Is by doing all of this, is by setting those boundaries.
It's given that proof. And I think as it grows more, I'm very much a believer in, I say to everyone, I say, everyone who's worked with me, every teacher that's worked with me who's got results, we treat it as a complete individual, but they all follow the same routines, habits, and structures like you would with a child in the class. They're all learning the same thing. You might need to tweak and change it for different children. Same with you. We're going to follow these principles and we're going to build it around you. And then the biggest thing I always think for everyone is just chatting and talking. Like, I have WhatsApp, chatting and talking with everyone that I work with one-to-one, because a lot of fitness programs now are all about group. And I think group fitness can be great, but I know I don't know about you, I know if I was in group fitness and I was one of, say, like 20, I'd never ask a question.
No.
I'd never ask a question. I
probably wouldn't even say I was struggling.
Yeah.
I'd just stand at the back and
just be there. So I always think it's important to have that little connection where you're like, listen, if you're struggling with something, you message me on this and I will get back to you. And again, I think it's got to be on something more personal. Like, I have a fitness app that I use. Any PT can subscribe to like these fitness apps, and it's got in messaging. And one of the biggest things is like, oh, you can switch it from your other one. And while I think it's important to have boundaries, and I have like a business WhatsApp phone, which has where they text, again, I would not want to be working with someone who was like messaging me through this app. Yeah. I'd be like, no, like, let's do this like human beings and like do it in the way that all humans are doing it, by texting. And that to me is a big one. I think you've got to build that. You've got to build that relationship. You've got to build that support, and you've got to care for like everyone you work with. And that to me, I think is a big one now. Like, so much of the fitness industry is going into that, like how many people I can have and how big of earning I can make, rather than like the impact on it. Like, I think it's a big one. I don't know how much. My Instagram is very much like fitness business world. I don't know how much you know about it, but like, there's a big thing in fitness at the minute of like, earn 10K. If you earn 10K, you're a success. If you don't, you're not. And then if you earn 10K, then it's like, now you got to earn 20. And you've got to charge up front. and you've got to do this. I know people who charge like £2,000 for 3 months of online coaching.
What?
Yeah, and
That's
I
wild.
was advised to do that with teaching. I joined up a mentorship, and I was like, oh, okay, is this how real business? And again, at the beginning, you're like, oh, okay, is this how a real business works? And I think I did it for about a month, and then I went back to him. I was like, I don't think this is right. And he was like, you're not selling it right. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing it. But as well, like, I know that I was at the top of my pay scale on M6. The time I would have been earning like 2 to 2.5 grand after tax. Well, I'm asking for their like full wage. You know, like, and
like
it's
morally, I don't know where I stand on that.
Yeah, like, and he's like, what do you think of fair prices? And I was like, £125 a month. It's enough where I can live a comfortable life and not be burnt out. And he was like, no, needs to be like 400. And I was like, no, I don't.
No, I'm not comfortable with £100 a week. Sorry.
Yeah, I think for like £125 a month, if they need any help with the training, if they need any help with the nutrition, I'm there. But more importantly, like, we're chatting, we're talking, we're going on it all. Do you know, like,
I'm interested in that part of it as well. I'm really interested. Is it quite going back to teaching briefly? Is it quite a lonely experience? I know you spend between 9 and 3 surrounded by children and with staff and stuff. But I imagine you're in your own head quite a lot. Because you're planning, you're prepping, you're teaching. You've got head teachers coming down at you.
Yeah,
I imagine it must feel a little bit.
I think it's a weird one. It is and it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It can be if you're if your school's not a great atmosphere. It can be. Quite a lot of schools are like really supportive, but you can go the whole day without seeing another teacher, just because, like, especially in primary. You have your room.
Yeah.
Do you know? So you don't leave your room. I was terrible for going to like everyone else's rooms. I'd be like, oh, God,
I used to love those teachers.
But
were you a PE teacher?
No, just primary.
Just
primary. But like, I used to have a very relaxed classroom because I was very relaxed with it, to the point of like, I was one of the few teachers in the school who like would let the kids go to the toilet whenever they wanted. But the only reason I did was because I went to the toilet whenever I wanted. Yeah. And I was like, I can't really do it. And I was on a conference and I'd come back a little bit early. I had like 2 hours early. So I was like, oh, I've got a couple of jobs to do in school. I'll go back. And the supply teacher was in the classroom. And I remember it was just as I walked in because I had to get something. And she was like, I can't believe this. Someone had just asked to go to the toilet. She was like, I've never been in a class where so many children ask to go to the toilet all the time. You'd never see a teacher just constantly go in the toilet. And as 30 kids, all at once, just turned and looked at me. And I just got my bag and just walked back out the room. Because I was like, I'd be like, oh, I'm going.
We used to have a teacher in primary school, Mr. Cave. Weirdly, I ended up doing a play with him years later, which was just the most sort of joyous kind of universal experience that this teacher that I idolized I'd have been in year 3, and he was just the coolest guy, man. Like, he'd get to I think it was like a Friday treat or something, and it'd be after lunch on a Friday. He'd set us some sort of task, some medial work that no one really cared about, and then he'd go, right, and he had a little pot of mints. He'd get his little pot of mints out, and if you wanted a mint, you could come up and get a mint. And he'd put his feet up on the desk and he'd read Lord of the Rings to us, and it was just joyous to have like a story read to you. Yeah,
it's so good.
Like, those teachers who like just, there's a little bit of fun there, and there's a little bit of reward and some artisticness and some creativity. And then I ended up doing a play with him years later, and I was on stage with him, and I was like, I can't believe I'm on stage with Mr. Cave. This is the coolest thing. So what's next then for the business then?
I don't know, to be fair.
Is it growing? It's moving in the right direction. It sounds like it is.
Yeah, it's going really well, to be fair. To me, it's just carrying on doing kind of what I'm doing.
And I guess you want to. Sorry to interrupt. I guess you want to reach more teachers.
Yeah, to be fair, because of Instagram, like I love Instagram, but because of Instagram, like my page is shot up and up and up. But I think what's really interesting is I know a few people's pages who've like shot up, and they will get like, I've known other like PTs and that where their pages will jump up like 100,000 people in like a day, and they'll go viral. But what's really interesting with mine is it hasn't. It's been like, so for like 15 months now, like solidly 10,000. It grows by 10,000. So it's kind of like almost doing the same, harnessing it that way. And what I quite like about mine, probably like me self-deprecating with it and stuff like that, is a lot of times when people have gone big, you'll see big accounts. It'll be because maybe that person's got a bit of something about them on the video, which is just attach like the attention to them. And then they'll go viral and they'll have like a little bit of a loyal fan base. I probably haven't got a loyal fan base. It's all about the teacher stuff that I talk about. So what I really like about my Instagram is for a post to do well, I have to like get it right. My face being on it ain't gonna do it. And I think a perfect example of it is, it was our me and my wife's wedding anniversary on Monday. Our second wedding anniversary. For most pages like that, that would be the post that like, shoots it up into the stratosphere. Still did well. I got like 500 likes on it where you're like, wow, that's good. But yeah, I can do like posts about teaching that will hit like 2, 3, 4, even one which did like 30,000 likes. And I think it's that thing about, I kind of use Instagram as like, I'll put stuff out there, I'll see what works, and then I'll go, oh, okay. Like, I kind of need to lean into this with what I'm working on as well. Like I talked about teacher burnout, that in like 2-3 days has got like over 30,000 likes, 6,000 shares.
That clearly resonated.
It resonates, but then I go, okay, well, I need to work on stuff like that. And I think the big one for me is just going to be learning off others for the future, about kind of looking at like, okay, how do I grow this without losing it? So whenever I look at growing it and whenever I'll speak to advice, it'll be like, oh, you do this, or you bring this person in, or you do this, or you do that. And I'm like, okay, well, now I'm not talking to them anymore. I'm a CEO then. And I don't want to be the CEO who does some Instagram post and does this. I want, whenever someone joins, that they know that like they've almost got like a hotline to me where they can text and they can ask questions and they can get that side of it. They can rant, they can get everything there. So it's probably for me, like that's the next step of building it there so that I can help even more people in those settings.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say then if there's any teachers listening to this episode who are struggling, who are stressed, who are overworked, who are, maybe worried about their mental health, maybe worried about their physical health? What would you say to them?
I would say the first one is, if anyone's worried about something like that, like always find that place where you feel comfortable to like chat and talk. And my DMs are always open, so anyone can either text or voice note me on Instagram. I'll always reply, I'll always answer, I'll always give everyone that time. Because to me, I think some of the troubles can be, if you're feeling really overworked and really burnt out and really stressed, you don't want to talk to anyone really about it in school, because either maybe one, they might be the problem, or two, you don't want to be that energy drain for them. But then at the same time, you might not want to talk to your family and friends about it, because again, you're almost highlighting to them that you're in this like really miserable place and they can't really do anything about it. And sometimes we just need to get it off our chests. So like if anyone is feeling like that, finding someone like me or someone else that they feel comfortable to, messaging them. What I think's brilliant about is they can rant. It's always going to be a safe place. I'm never going to be, obviously I'll give people advice and help, but I'm never going to be one to give advice. I'm not going to be, right, what you need to do is do this. Quite a lot of the time, we just need to get stuff out of our own heads. And that to me is a big one. So I'd always say message. My DMs are always open, either me or someone else they feel comfortable with, where it can be that safe space for them, where they know it's not going to like impact anyone, because obviously I want them to be in a better place, but without sounding horrible, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Like it's not going to have that mental drain on me. And I always think that's an important thing. It's part of my coaching as well. I would say to them all, like, I want you to be the best person you can be, but like, I'm not going to be like emotionally attached to the problems you have in school. So you can send them to me. If you send them to your family or you send them to other people in school, it's like almost doubling the problem. We're sending it to me, it kind of relaxes it and relieves it. And that's the big one for me.
Yeah, because there's a big push, isn't there? I mean, I know you worked you worked with our friend Dan. Had a little look into what he does, Dan Hancock, on mental health PTing and that side of the fitness industry, and you're quite big on that as well, aren't you?
Oh, 100%. To me, I'm a big believer in, if you get the mind thriving, the body will come along for the ride. Like, no one gets like those Thursday night takeaways when you're absolutely shattered. No one gets them because they enjoy them. They get them because they're tired and they can't be bothered to think. If you've got your food nailed and you've got something that you enjoy and is easy to make, you're never ordering that takeaway. You know, when people like absolutely binge on chocolate and sweets and crisp or anything like that, again, it's because either they're eating the feelings or they're not set up and they just want some quick fix to like give them energy. Again, if you're nailing everything where you're feeling good in your own mind, that's not going to happen. No one gets their actual diet wrong. I don't have to change many people's diets who I work with, because they're not like, you know, having a frozen pizza every night and like they're having good stuff, but then they're binging on a load of chocolate. They're having good stuff, but come Thursday, they're getting 4 takeaways over the weekend. Do you know? And it's not because they crave that stuff. They're in bad routines and habits which need to be broken. They're tired and exhausted. They can't really think. Like, teachers make 1,500 decisions a day, more than any other job on the planet. They can't be like, it's not even that they can't be bothered. They don't have the mental capacity to decide what they want for tea and whether it's right. So it's putting it in a different place and going, right, on a Sunday, plan out your food and make it easy. Don't be trying to make a lasagna on a Thursday night because you're not going to do it. Have chicken and potato. Do you know? And it's those little things where it all builds in. And to me, it all comes from the mindset. If you can build that mental strength, if you can build the right boundaries, if you can build the right habits, the right routines, the right structures, give yourself those environments for release, that's where the magic's going to happen.
And where can people find you?
Probably the best place would be Instagram. So at the Teachers PT, nice and simple. And yeah, if they've been listening, shoot me a message as well.
I'm sure you're going to be inundated with people. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure to sit down with you, man. You're doing remarkable work. You really are. I it's been an eye-opener for me. I had no idea that, I mean, I had a rough idea at how difficult teaching was, but to have it, you know, sort of laid out bare in front of me, yeah, it's remarkable work, man. You should be really proud of yourself.
Oh, no, thanks. I've enjoyed it as well. It's been good.
It's been a good little chat, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Up the Reds.
No.